And you're welcome along to another edition of TippCast. Shane Brophy here, sports editor of the Nina Guardian. I'm joined once again by local reporter Noel Dundon to go through everything Tip J related over the last week. No, pretty good weekend last weekend. This was the hurlers, good win over Wexford. Footballers last gap win over Longford. I was at that one. Harty Cup, great scenes with hurlers getting their ninth Harty, and it was just the lady footballers went down narrowly. But yeah, overall, I suppose another encouraging weekend. And I suppose we'll start with the hurling. No, you were in Semple Stadium. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. Probably a game we were expected to win. Tip, they won it. Not one that'll live long in the memory, but from the bits and pieces I was listening to on the radio. But like I suppose, look, we're trying to build a bit of momentum. So at least there was no, how would you say, it was get the job done after Galway, build another win, and kick into Limerick next weekend.
Yeah, I suppose Shane, after the when the league fixtures came out in the first place a couple of months back, you'll be looking at the first two games and you'll be saying, heading to Salt Hill to play Galway and Wexford at home, you'll be saying to yourself, right, we'll definitely try to pick up 2 points on the road from those two journeys. As it turns out, we have four following that really good win in Salt Hill, and followed it up with the expected win over Wexford. A win that was never really in doubt. But as you say, it was a poor quality game. It certainly didn't have the same kind of life in it as the Galway game had, or the same bite even as the Galway game. And also, I suppose, the fact that the pitch cut up quite badly, particularly around the old stand side of the field. And that was the only side open, actually, because as a result of the storm damage to the new stand over Downey Green was closed on the day. So all the action in the stand was in the old stand side. But yeah, the pitch had cut up badly enough there, and the same difficulty seems to be there with it. Um, so, all in all, I think Liam Kelly and his management team would be very pleased to have 2 points, or to have 4 points out of two matches. It couldn't be better. Their status is maintained, probably in the division already, and the shackles are off a little bit now. They can really have a cut at things, and they've some big tests ahead. But you can't really look for much more. Two games, 4 points, as you say, a bit of momentum rolling with them. A few more new players introduced last Sunday against Wexford to back up the ones who had played the previous Sunday in Salt Hill. And some of those guys who came in Salt Hill for the first time were rested last weekend. You're conscious of colleges as well being played, and lads are involved in those kind of games. But make no mistake about it, this upcoming game on Sunday is the one that's going to really test people and let us know where we're at.
Yeah, I suppose we'll touch on the Limerick game after a while. But I suppose looking back to last weekend, I think I said last week that this had a kind of banana skin written all over it, like after the Galway win, and I suppose the manner of Wexford's loss to Cork, and the fact that they're down so many key players through retirement and lads and injuries. And I think Lee Chin only arrived back in the country last week. I think he was in Semple Stadium last Sunday. So like they're I suppose they're in a difficult spot, and like sometimes psychologically that gets into lads' heads thinking, okay, we're going to win this, and they don't. What would you say? They don't put in I wouldn't say they don't put in the effort, but they lack that bit of urgency in their play. And would you think that was probably some of the reason maybe why did that Tip sort of didn't really hit the heights? Like from the bits I got through the radio, the likes of Craig Morgan was definitely trying to inject a lot of urgency in it. He could have finished the match with 4 or 5 points in play, and I suppose his I suppose the early fledgling signs of him going to midfield and bringing that all action game certainly seems to be something that could be a long-term thing.
Yeah, particularly partnering Willie Connors, who also has brought a lot of energy to the middle of the field there. And I probably shouldn't say brought, because that's always what Willie Connors has done, to be fair. Anytime he's been there, he has brought that energy. But certainly at the minute, we look like we have a lot of legs in the middle of the field, a lot of attacking options, if you like. The two lads are creating those. Like Willie got 3 points on Sunday, Craig got a point, was hooked for a possible goal chance early on as well, which would really have kind of killed off Wexford. But you mentioned the Wexford challenge, and that, like, we probably shouldn't forget, like, that on the 27th minute, it was 8 points to 7 in favour of Tip. Now, we scored the last 4 points of the half to lead by, sorry, we scored four of the last 5 points of the half to lead 12-8, gives a 4 point cushion. But at no stage in the game did we ever really look like we were going to lose the match, you know.
Yeah,
Um, Looking at Wexford, and with the amount of team building that they have been doing, and trying to bring young guys in, and Keith Roster was the manager of the under 20 team in Wexford a couple of seasons ago, and he's brought quite a few of the that panel in with him, even fellas who were only on the panel, who weren't on the team. He has brought them through into the senior panel, and now he's trying to integrate them there in the senior panel. And it looked to me as though Wexford were a little bit like maybe where Tip were last year, not entirely comfortable with the kind of system that they were playing, and then when the pressure comes on, they might drive it long, and it's turned over and delivered back into their own backline again, where they're having to defend. A little bit like Tip were last year, whereas I think Tip have moved on a step. Tip are a lot more comfortable with the kind of system that they're playing now. They're a lot more comfortable on the ball and using the ball and how to use the ball. And I think case in point for that was when they were under pressure in the Galway game. Willie Connors won a ball out around the middle of the field, and instead of trying to drive forward with it, he took a step forward, and then dummied, turned back around, tossed the ball back out to Rona Maher, who put a crossfield ball over to Dylan Walsh, and goal. Last year we might have been trying to drive forward through players, try to kick it on or something like that, and it becomes a 50-50 ball. That's what I was seeing in Wexford last Sunday, and even when they're trying to work the ball out of the back line, and the short pass going maybe 15, 20 yards wasn't going to hand. It's hitting the ground. Player has to take it, player has to control it, get a touch, maybe a second one before they do anything. And by then, their options are limited because the players are swallowing them up. So I think that's possibly where Wexford are. But like, they'll have a few to come back into it as well, Shane. They'll have a few. You mentioned their marquee player, I suppose, in Lee Chin, but there's a few others as well that will come back into it and will add a little bit of solidity to them. And they always have this ability to get a result off of Kilkenny and
yeah,
off of Galway. They've always managed to pull a result out of nowhere, particularly when their backs are to the wall. They haven't managed to do it against us, mind you, too often. I don't know when Wexford last beat Tip. You're possibly going back to that All Ireland quarter final, was it, in Croke
yeah.
Park? Came into
Although
Kenry.
overall, the record, I think, is one of the few or the record over Tip over the history is one of the best. Like, this was you
Yeah,
go back to the early
yeah,
years where they probably would have dominated us. Yeah, so like
yeah,
it was from the sounds of it. I say I haven't got to see it, and I think it's definitely one of the elements. I think the GA could develop with GA Go is, like, we all understand not every match can be on telly or streamed live. That if once you get to 12 midnight on Sunday night or into Monday, that every National League match should be up on GA Go, that you can watch it back during the week. Like, you see, I haven't seen the Tip game unless I probably went to one of the management teams to look for a DVD. I haven't seen it. Like, I don't know. Like, I suppose that's a frustrating thing for a lot of people to that for one reason or another just couldn't go to the game, like, so last weekend. And just from some of the elements I thought I got through the radio commentary, our our inside forwards seemed a little starved possession compared to the week before. Would that be fair to say?
yeah. It's probably fair to say Wexford played a man back there too, an extra man in defence. But yeah, it's probably fair to say, all right, that they were starved a little bit. And look, when you look at the scores and where they came from as well, like that, there was a lot of shooting from distance in
Mm,
this game from Tip perspective. Now, we drove. 7 wide. No, we drove 11 wide, 7 in the first half, 4 in the second half, which wouldn't be extraordinary given the time of the year, you know. But
Mm.
you look at the spread of scores, like Jake Morris had 2 from out the field, Willie Connors had 3, Craig Morgan 1, Gavin O'Halloran 1, Owen Connolly 2 massive ones from full back, well from inside his own Owen 45, he was operating full back. Michael Breen had a score from cornerback. And then John McGrath, Oisin O'Donoghue, and Johnny Ryan, they all scored when they came on. Those 3 guys scored when they came on. A lot of those scores are from distance, Shane, you know.
Mm.
Not too many taken from inside. Andy Ormond and Jason Ford had a pint apiece in the.
No, I'm encouraged by that, because we definitely see the likes of Limerick and Clare and Cork. Like there definitely has been a move, and I said we could. I was saying it last week that Tip are probably slow to the modern game. That we see in the Connor, the Dermot Ryans and stuff like that. They get a smell of a shot from 100 yards to take it on. Like, and normally you'd say, God, that's a poor option. Why don't you let it inside? But like, in some ways, like if an opposition is say Wexford and this could hold a man back, you can't really hit it inside. So like if and we know that these guys, if they're trained right, they can be so accurate. Like, and look, if you, as Owen Conley scored 2, as the game goes on, Wexford know they can't sit up them, so they might have to push up, which means maybe there's a slip pass into somebody who can maybe score closer to goal as well. So like I did think that was one aspect of Tip's game from the last couple of years that was missing, is that Tip weren't scoring as many long range points as the other teams, and like that's about keeping the opposition ominous too. It's like if an opponent knows that say Tip are not going to take a long range shot, they're just going to sit back and say, okay, they're going to try and ping it in the corner, maybe ping something in at the edge of the square, and we'll be back safe in numbers, and we'll take it off them.
Yeah, and I suppose it's about how you set up the shooter as well. You
Yeah.
know, it's about what you do with the, like, obviously if Wexford in last Sunday's case have an extra man back in their back line, chances are we have it in our back line as well. So it's about how you set up that shooter to take the shot. So whether it's Ronan Maher acting as the quarterback, takes the effort, takes the pass back from Willie Connors, like I highlighted earlier on, or Craig Morgan is setting up Gavin O'Halloran for the score, as happened last week. Sam O'Farrell, I think, chipped in with a couple of long range efforts as well the week before. So it's how you set up that striker, and how you give them the opportunity to take the chance. Like a lot of the time, maybe when we were shooting in years gone by, there might have been what we would call a Hail Mary efforts, you know,
Mm.
where a guy is under pressure, charging out of the back line and shooting from distance and shooting wide, and you're kind of scratching your head, like, you know. But when we see the way Limerick do it and have been doing it, and Kilkenny were good at it as well, past masters at it as well,
Mm.
where the Declan Hannon was probably the main man taking the ball and distributing it to the likes of Diarmaid Burns alongside him,
Mm.
or to whoever it would be. Yeah, exactly, Kyle Hayes or whoever it would be taking the pass off. And they're the ones, they know how to play it. They know where to position
Yeah.
themselves when they see that on. I think we're just getting to that stage now, Shane. I think we're just getting to be comfortable with that. I think, you know, you see Seamus Kennedy coming off the shoulder of Ronan Maher to take a ball, drive forward, and see what he can do. Like we're just getting to that stage now where it's becoming a kind of an instinctive thing for us.
Yeah, no,
And that,
I think
I think that's good.
yeah, and I think that's where I think the management are. I suppose that'll be part of their thinking as they bed the team in over the next while, and getting towards the end of the league and getting a better feel for the championship team. And like I know a lot of people probably see Ronan Maher as a 6. Like I actually like the idea of Ronan as a 7 back in his brother's old position, where he has that ability to get forward up the wing, and we know sometimes he can frustrate you about how inaccurate he is, but he has some strike. He can score from long range, and you could put Seamus Kennedy at the number 5. You could have, and we know Seamus Kennedy is very accurate from long range. They could be your two. They could be two absolute weapons on your wings pushing forward. And if you knew were comfortable at centre back, like Brian McGrath's had 2 games there since, I assume. that Ronan will probably still be the long-term 6, but it's hard to know. You're thinking if Seamus Kennedy, assuming Seamus Kennedy is fit on the 20th of April, first round of the championship, and you're not going to tinker at the middle of the field, you're probably looking at him as a wing back. Would you not? Would you think, or maybe a deep line wing forward?
Yeah, you'd think that he's going to be there in the 15 anyway. A backman, we be primarily be a backman in my mind, I think. But as you're talking about that centre back slot, I mean, it's a role that Brian O'Mara plays a lot with the club as well, and plays very well. So is he going to slot in there somewhere too? We had the last day we had Robert Doyle really staking a claim at cornerback, was very, very good as well. And you have Michael Breen and Owen Connolly was at fullback. So like there's a lot of options there now for
Michael Breen could go on the wing and fly up one side like Michael. And I suppose Michael he's become so flexible now.
Yeah, almost to a fault. He could be anywhere on the team, like, and I'm sure he probably would prefer to be in a lot of other places other than cornerback. But he'll go wherever he's played. That's the kind of a character he is, and he'll give you options no matter where he is. And Seamus Kennedy would be of the same ilk. I'd say Seamus has played practically everywhere for his bar goals at this stage. And would always give you everything that he has. But I think the management team are in a very happy position right now, in that they have so many options there in the back line that they can call on. The midfield pairing is almost nailed down probably at this stage. I'm talking about now for next weekend.
Yeah.
At this stage, and in the attack, there are many options too. We haven't seen Noel McGrath back yet. Whether we will see him in the panel for next week, Dara Stakelum, who was a starter all last year, we haven't seen him play yet. Connor is injured, I think, from what I can gather. And so there's a lot of options there, and it's a double-edged sword, really. These games are about trying to get fellas matches to stress test them and see how they'll cope under real pressure. But at the same time, you're not too far off coming to a stage where you need to be settling your team as well. And I think you'd like to be in a position where your championship team is almost settled by two rounds out from the end of the league. And that's not too far away at this stage.
No, I think Liam Cahill mentioned the Kilkenny game. I think that's the penultimate round robin game. And I think at the 9th of March, I think he was hoping that definitely by then he did have a fair idea. And look, I suppose with looking ahead to Limerick next weekend, I suppose I think it's fair to say, while we got 2 wins from 2 and it was a great start, like the Galway performance, you can nearly throw a line through Galway considering the way they responded against Kilkenny. And that we know that Galway team, the first day out, it was a little raw. Like it just didn't happen for them, and we benefited to the tune of a huge win. We got the win against Wexford, but I think that definitely will come out of the Gaelic grounds next Sunday evening with a better feel for where Tip are. Like in terms of, I would assume, I think maybe some of the reason for the flatness of last weekend was that we know there'll be an element of there'll be hard training weeks and easy training weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if last week pre-Wexford was the hard training week in the mid, just so it can be a little fresher this week going into Limerick. Then to have 2 weeks that can go down, do a hard training week next week before easing off going into Cork. Like so, I wouldn't be surprised if Tip are a little bit fresher this weekend. I'd say Ronan Maher will probably come back in this weekend. Gerard O'Connor, I don't think has Fitzgibbon Cup this week, so I would assume he'll come back in. I know he was rested, like so. I suppose it'd be a great stress test maybe for the likes of Robert Doyle. And I know that the management are a big fan of his, and he's a nuggety type of defender. Another one for Darren McCarthy. And I know people are maybe, there's a lot of pressure on the chap, and people will be looking at his scoring rate so far and thinking that he's only scored, I think, 1 point from playing the 2 matches. But he's showing for the ball the whole time. He's nailing his frees. He's clinically scored his 2 penalties. And it's actually, in some ways, I'm kind of glad he hasn't shot the lights out from play yet. That the last thing you might want is a young lad actually building him up too much at the start. Like he's going to be he is going to come, and maybe it'll be a game like this where look, he's probably assuming Dan Morrissey starts, he's going to be probably coming up against arguably one of the best full-backs in the game next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt that we're looking at Darren McCarthy as being a player for the future for us. I think it would be unfair of us to be regarding him as our main man in attack at this stage. You know, he's still only a kid in terms of hurling development and all that. But what an education he's getting, you know.
Yeah.
It really is a great education for him, and he has taken on the responsibility of the frees, Shane, and the penalties. And like, you know, we weren't always certain when we'd get a penalty that was going to end up in the net, you know. But Dara, I'd say, I don't know what his percentages are from penalties, but I'd say you're talking in the high 90s anyway, you know. Like the Wexford goalkeeper got a hurley to the one last Sunday, but there was just too much power in the shot. Like it was low down to the left and a very difficult one for a goalkeeper to block. Any goalkeeper will tell you that the ball that's traveling low and traveling fast, very difficult to block, you know. So he knows what to do with the ball from dead ball situations, and that's invaluable to have as well, you know. Like we did see Jason Ford come back the last day, probably fairly clear that he needs matches as well, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Liam throwing him in there again next Sunday to try and get those matches into him, and to see, you know, what he can do. We all know what Jason can do, but it's a case of getting him back to kind of match fitness and match sharpness and all that, because he's going to be a vital player for us as well.
I think John McGrath too would be a nice game for him to, like, we know. I'm just convinced that the thing with John is just his confidence. I think you put a lot more jersey on him and the game is easy. I think the last 2 years, if you put a Tip jersey on him, I think he doubts himself a small bit. I think he feels maybe that he knows it's not coming to him as easy as it was maybe in his first 5 or 6 years of his Tip career. But all it'll take is 1 or 2 games and he'll relax again. And look, we saw the way he got his point when he got on Sunday against Wexford, got on the ball. Once he's in possession, you just know that he'll make that half yard of space and over the bar.
Yeah, and like, I suppose if you're John McGrath and looking to see how you're going to impact the team, you know, maybe to look at the likes of what Henry Shefflin did in the twilight of his career, where you know, after having the injuries and that he had to kind of readjust his approach to the game, to still make that impression, and like, he mightn't have been doing what he was doing when he was 21 or 22 or 23, but he was still able to have a huge impact on the game. And John is in that category now, and Noel has kind of evolved into that category. Yeah. And but the thing about playing at intercounty level is that you need the game, you need to be getting game time to actually work on how you're going to impact that game. There are a few more mentally tuned in players in the game than John McGrath. He's a real thinker in the game, and a guy who kind of plays on instinct. So I think that, you know, with time and with matches and with more training, that John can evolve the role that he has played with Tip for so long into a different type of role. You know, we have plenty of lads there, Shane, who can run around the field. We have the legs there. We have a lot of lads coming through with legs. But John's vision is something that, you know, we talk about Noel's vision. John's vision is every bit as good, and his ability to bring players into matches and that. So it's going to be about how other players play around John as much as how John plays around them, you know.
Yeah, and I think to beat the good teams like Limerick, like it does, it will mean like getting the right players in the ball and taking the right decisions. And we know that maybe in the frenetic championship game that Tip will need to make more right decisions and not to win games, and not maybe put the aimless ball under pressure down on top of their half back line. Like, so, and like, it's hard not to think that there won't be bite this weekend. Like, this matchup was the first round of the championship in the 20th of April, Easter Sunday, like, and probably 35,000 people in Simple Stadium. Like, this game is going to matter. You can be sure John Kiley, he looked hot on the sideline last weekend against Cork. I think he knows, I wouldn't say there's pressure on Limerick, but he knows, look, they lost their All-Ireland last year. he knows he needs to the edge needs to come again, and like he'll probably look at Tip and think, okay, it wouldn't do any harm now to maybe put them back in their box a small bit. This up and coming new fresh looking Tip team, like, and I think that's probably the one thing that Liam Cahill is probably going to be revving into his boys this week, that whoever the 26 are giving jerseys this weekend, that it's not just a hurling test, it's a physical test. Who's going to stand up to the physicality of this game? Like, and look, we saw how ferocious that Cork Limerick match was last Saturday night, and definitely in physicality in the past that we were found a little wanton maybe against Limerick, and maybe a small bit of smarts. I mean, maybe a small bit of lack of composure, that maybe when the pressure came on, we took the easy option of maybe going long instead of maybe giving that short pass and going with maybe the riskier play, and maybe trying to not playing into their strengths, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the match last Saturday night, and it was certainly a few ratchets above what we have played in terms of intensity in either the Galway or the Wexford games. But it's a funny thing, Shane, when you're playing matches under floodlights, on a fairly full stadium and all that, like it can kind of drive players on too. They can be playing above their station a little bit maybe, or above their level where they're at that particular minute. So it'll be a different story next Sunday. But I would imagine that the management team will be saying all this week, they'll be saying to the players, no backward step. We're going forward, going forward, going forward. No backward step. Let's tear into Limerick. Let's see what we're made of. Let's see what they're made of. It's enough of a distance away from the championship game to not be showing your hand, if you like. At times, if these games come too close to championship, it can be a little bit of a phony war. But this is far enough away from it, and there'll be enough of other matches in between to not fall into that category. Um, Going down to Limerick, I think Tip will be looking for the performance here rather than the result. If we get a really, really good performance, I think we'll be very happy. Right, obviously, if you win or if you get a draw, the result would mean an awful lot as well. But I think the performance is what's key here, going down. And look, I mean, Limerick have a pint. They've only 1 pint. So if we were to get something off of them, it would give them something to think about.
Yeah, and like we know how Limerick are going to play, and like I wouldn't be one of those that would think that Tipperary don't need to show their hand. I think we actually could do with finding out on Sunday how we could play this Limerick team going forward. Like, and I think we're pointers, like maybe it's probably too soon to start maybe Seamus Kennedy, but like he's getting more and more minutes the whole time. Like maybe they will start him and maybe pull him off with 10 minutes into the second half. Like I'd say to be probably tempted maybe at this stage maybe to do something like that. You just sort of want to get a feel for maybe how a thing would look. Look, the Connors Morgan thing, can that work against the Limerick middle of the field? Okay, look, Will O'Donoghue won't be there, and he was colossal last weekend for Cork. But then Darragh O'Donovan's come back. We know Adam English is probably going to be on the starting team next. It has to be, like, he's playing too well to. And I definitely think there was a sense, definitely over the last 2 years, that the Limerick team was there was a sort of a loyalty to the team that won up all along. But I think that's gone now. I think that definitely is the decision whether Declan Hannon took it himself or whether he was given the little nudge that he was stepped down as captain, that it's up for grabs for everybody now. Like, so it's a free for all.
Yeah, and it probably had to happen in Limerick. It freshens the thing up. What they're doing in the backline with Kyle Hayes moving into the centre and all that, it freshens the whole setup up that little bit. And that's not to say that he'll remain there for the year. It's not to say that Declan Hannon won't have a huge part to play. He will, I'm sure he will. Whether that's on the field for the whole game or off it or whatever, he'll have a massive role to play in that Limerick team. But Limerick probably felt that they needed a bit of a freshening up, and no better man than John Kiley to spot that from the off. We mentioned their possibilities, what they'll do in terms of the starting 15, and that it'll be interesting to see what will happen with Seamus Flanagan following that incident too. Will they start him? Will other things have come into play in the meantime? We don't really know. It's probably not at this stage. It's probably a bit late.
No, and it was. and I think it was a spectator footage, and like I'm sure maybe this Crow Park maybe trawl through the official footage maybe to see did anybody pick it up. As like it probably goes down a dangerous road. Like if you do have maybe mobile phone footage from somebody in a stand that potentially do maybe in time that the GA will probably allow that to happen, because look, we don't want that sort of incident creeping into the game where like, and look, it is people. I was disappointed that some ex-players were kind of downplaying it. Like there's been a couple of players in the past we've known, even down to club games, that even an accidental shot in that area, groin area, it could lead to serious repercussions. Like so, and thankfully there was nothing happened here. But that's not to say it wouldn't. We don't want that sort of thing creeping into the game either. Like so, look, I'd say Seamus Flanagan is going to be watched like going forward, and yeah, no, it'll be. I think it'll be definitely from a Tipperary point of view. I think this is going to be a step up. Look, we played two Leinster opponents in our first two games, probably two. Now we're heading into the meet. Our last four matches of the league against four of our biggest rivals, Limerick, Cork, Kilkenny, and Clare. Like so, it's something to look forward to. Just to wrap up on the Wexford game and Limerick. I am just a couple of players maybe. I definitely Josh Keller got a start last weekend. He's definitely definitely feels he's a project player that they're looking at him maybe in a Garrod Hegarty type of. He's definitely not the finished article, but I think this is a long-term project that the longer we keep him in here, he'll get up to speed. And he's tall, he's rangy, but if he gets on a solo run, he can be hard to stop. He had a couple of decent involvements in the game, but he was taken off at half time. Like, so what did you make of him?
Yeah, I thought it was a game that it kind of bypassed him, Shane, in lots of ways, you know. But I would agree entirely with you that it's not you're not looking to Josh Keller really for this year's championship. I would say I think he needs to get in there, get some serious training under his belt. You know, it usually takes a year or two of SNC to get a guy like that up to speed, who's just coming into you from the club scene. So I would be in agreement with you there. I think it's a kind of a thing that they're going to look at more long term. He's a big guy, big rangy player, and you're dead right. He's kind of in the same shape as Garrod Hegarty. And if we can get him to that level or near that level, he'd be some plus for Tipperary. I was kind of sorry for him that he went at half time. You know, we were winning by 12 points to 8, and obviously a new young player coming in. You don't want to disappoint him too much. I'm sure he was disappointed, but he can keep his head up because I think he's one that they're going to be looking at long term. You know.
Yeah, and on the one hand, you could be saying that it was harsh by the management, but in some ways, the management are probably saying, lads, it doesn't matter whether you're 18 or 34. If you're given the chance, you have to take it. Like, and look, encouraging. I think Oisin O'Donoghue came in for Josh, and I think he had scored within a few minutes, and he's only 18, 19 years of age. So, interesting to see whether he maybe gets a start this weekend. Just moving on to the footballers, I was in Clonmel Sportsfield on Saturday. Footballers beat Longford 3-13 to 1-18. Really enjoyable game of football. I definitely in my piece this week I sort of said if this was under, I would say, the official rules GA last year on a cold, blustery, drizzly day, you could have been looking at an 8 points to 7 match, like, and just really good. Like, it was the first time I'd seen the football rules in person, and look, there's definitely a feel that teams are still getting used to them, and it's sort of that chaos is sort of leading to the drama of it. But like for Tip to come from come from 7 down against Carlow, got a draw, came from 6 down early in the second half last weekend to win. I suppose, and then I think Mark Russell's 2-pointer, I think it was the first time under the enhancements rules that a 2-point score took a team from a losing position to a winning position, like so. But like, yeah, no, it was just good scenes afterwards, like a lot of people going to Philly Ryan and the players as if they'd won a championship match. But like it's all about momentum for Tip football. When things are going poorly, we sort of they struggle. But like, to start getting a few wins and a few positive results, this thing could turn around pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so, Shane. Philly would have taken your hand off if you told him that he was going to get 3 points out of the first 4 games. And you're looking at the next 2 games as well. You're looking at Waterford away, and you're looking at London at home, and you'd be kind of saying to yourself, look, there's a fair chance that we could pick up another 4 points there, which would leave you in a very, very strong position midway through the league, and maybe kind of looking towards promotion. Dare I say it? But I suppose the one thing is that Tip are playing with a bit of abandon as well, like, and that's great to see. There's a little bit of that flair coming back into the team that we would have seen back 6-7 years ago maybe. And the Clonmel factor, Shane, I'm sure that played a big part as well. The game being
Yeah.
played in Clonmel and home support and all that. A far better atmosphere than you would have in the big cavern in Semper Stadium.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and I said that the crowd, like for what was a dirty afternoon, and the rugby was probably coming up at 4:45. You think people sit at home and maybe wait for that, but no. And yeah, you mentioned that's that lovely enclosed atmosphere, and definitely as Tip were sort of piling on the pressure towards the end, and we're clawing back the deficit, and like the roar that went up when Mark Russell swung over that shot, like, and there was the tip 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 chant after they went ahead. So yeah, it was that it sort of felt right, and so it felt like something we hadn't heard for a long time. And no, like definitely in terms of work in progress, you say, look, Tip are far from the finished article, but they're a very, very good platform there at the moment. I think there's definitely more of a structure. Right? There is a structure to their play, but it's not players are allowed to express themselves. We have two in wing forwards in Ben Comerford and Michal Freeney, two big guys, but they get up and down that field. They know their role. Luke Boland at centre back knows his role. He knows, but he's allowed break forward too. I thought middle of the field, Mark Russell, Carl Deely were outstanding. Like we dominated the sky. Like, and I definitely think Tipperary will be trying to look, and maybe Longford could have been one of the smaller teams that come up against, but definitely think if more of the contests in the middle of the field might play to Tip's strength, like, because we have height out there, and maybe they're managing Stephen O'Brien's minutes. Stephen played most of the game as one of the 3 players up. Like, they're just trying to get him through the games in terms of that he has tended to break down in the National League the last few years, and like they took him off with 5 minutes to go. So like it's all about managing time. And I think in terms of going forward, I suppose the couple of frustrating things were that we had an awful lot of the ball in the first half, but then we got up inside Longford's attack, a defensive third, and we were turned over. We were trying to force the pass a bit too often. Second half, maybe with the wind behind them, it was definitely brilliant from both sides that if they got the smell of a 2-point shot, they took it on. And which was great to see. And I think we saw it through a lot of the games last weekend, Donegal, Dublin, particularly Derry Kerry, the two-point arc, particularly for teams that have the breeze. Like, it's a lot like, it's nearly going to go back to old school like hurling, where if you have the breeze now, you have to use it. Like you especially with the 2-point score. And even if it goes wide, there's a fair chance that the opponent's goalkeeper is going to have to kick it back long, which means there's a 50-50 chance of you re-winning the ball. Like, so I think a lot of people think the 2-point arc is the game changer, or the 3 up. I actually think it's the kick out. I just think that the day of maybe all the kickouts now have to go outside the 40-meter arc, and like that's a fair stretch for a keeper. And like, I think the interesting thing will be how Stephen Cluxton adjusts to it when he gets back in the goals for Dublin. Right, we know that Stephen Cluxton can ping it from anywhere. Like, so, but definitely think that the kick out thing is a game changer.
Yeah, and there's also the thing with the kick out that you don't have to wait for the whistle. You can kick it out. It doesn't have to be the goalkeeper kicks it out either. So that if it's a thing that you've got a lot of players forward and there's a score kicked, if you get the ball back out quick, you can be on the counter
Mm,
attack really, really fast,
mm,
which is a good thing as well. But I suppose, Shane, the one thing that strikes me about football at the minute, like, when you picture last year and the last couple of years, the one word that you could use to describe tip football was predictable.
yeah.
We were very, very predictable and very, very easy
Mm,
counteract as a result. But
mm,
we seem to have brought a different kind of a level of dynamism to the team this time around. The players have a little bit more freedom to attack, and as you
yeah.
say rightly, you do get turned over when you do that because you're taking
Yeah.
a risk to take on a player or whatever. But them's the breaks. You, if you don't try it, you're not going to achieve it. Like so,
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot to like at the minute with the team.
Yeah, like it looked Longford did score 118. I thought for most of the game that it was that they were on the front foot, and like I think they definitely when they were in possession they put a lot more pace on the ball. Like they got it from back to front maybe a lot quicker than Tip. But like I think the way Tip are going with it at the moment, that they'll figure it out. Like definitely, you can definitely see there is more space. Like when you're not having maybe 15 behind the ball, you have 12 now, and maybe some teams are. It'll be a lot of evolving. Maybe some in time will be saying, look, we might hold a fourth one up the field. And I know there's been a bit of chatter last weekend. Some of the managers saying there should be a six. So, but I don't know. I wouldn't be in favor of that now. I think as managers get used to this, and maybe they'll maybe ask for players maybe a bit more kick pass, and maybe if you know the game is going to be quicker, you sort of can't expect the same levels from players. And I think if you went the six sub route, that definitely plays to the hand of the stronger counties, deeper panels. Like you think that if the Dublin's six sub on is a lot stronger than to maybe Tipperary six sub on. So I hope they don't go with that. But like in terms of the early days of the I suppose the enhancement rules, I think it's encouraging. The only thing we didn't see it on the Tip game, especially, was neither goalkeeper ventured up the field. Like, and we know, I was looking at the Dublin Donegal game. The Dublin goalie came out an awful lot, but he acted more of a decoy than anything else. Like, so
Yeah,
I, I do
yeah,
think I do think that 12v11 thing with the goalie, something's going to have to be done there. Like, because I don't just like this idea of the goalie having a special, if he comes out the field, that he has special treatment. That if you're going to allow the goalie, come fine, but then the opposition, one of their three forwards, has got to be allowed to come back to pick him up. Like it sort of, or either you make a rule to say the goalie can't cross the middle of the field, if you know what I mean. That it's once you get into the attack of that the goalie can't go any further. Maybe that's the way
yeah.
to get around it.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be tweaking done, Shane, as
Mm.
time goes on as well with it. Like, but I suppose the thing about the goalkeeper coming out the field, and I think they're allowed to take a pass once they cross the halfway line. I think isn't that
Yeah, yeah,
the rule, and get involved in the play that way. But as you said, maybe they'll be acting as a decoy. But if there's a breakdown in the play and possession is turned over, he want to be like Jesse Owens to get back to the goals. That's the
we
big
saw it
thing,
in
like,
the Roscommon down game the week before when
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Roscommon scored a goal from about 30 yards out into an empty net.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
so
That's
Tip
it.
heading into have a bye weekend. Sorry, not a bye weekend. There's no football league this weekend. Oh, sorry, there is, but postponed games from round one that were called off. I think Wicklow and Waterford, they were playing on Saturday. Noel, you were also in Mallow on Saturday for the Harty Cup final. Great win for Thurles CBS, 113 to 13 points over St. Flannan's. Not the classic we had hoped. I think the conditions probably played an awful lot in terms of that. But I suppose Thurles got on the front foot early against the breeze. Flannan's came back, got the bit of a purple patch before half time. But I suppose Jack Hayes' goal was probably the key score in the match.
It was Shane. That was the crucial one. After half time, it gave Thurles the lead, and I think Thurles went in 2 points down at half time, and they would have been quite pleased considering the strength of the breeze and that, and knowing that they would have it at their backs in the second half. It was blown right down the middle of the field, and without doubt, the work that was done in 20-minute period at the start of the game, that laid the foundations to the victory, because it really kept Flannans at bay, and Thurles, and they did it by attacking them actually. It wasn't a case of sitting back and defending. Particularly with their system or anything that they played as they would play, but they went at Flannans, created a good few chances, missed a few as well, as did Flannans. A couple of frees went to begging for both sides as well, which will tell you the way the wind was blowing. But certainly, by the halfway mark, I think, I don't have my notes with me now, but I think if I'm right, Flanagan scored about maybe 5 points before half time in the run into half time, to come from behind, to go in front, and to take that 2 point lead. And you're kind of saying Thurles need half time and quick, get in there, keep the gap as small as they could. And when the final whistle or the halftime whistle did blow with Johnny Murphy, you were saying, yeah, they're in a right good position here now. 2 points down, really, really positive place to be, with the breeze to come in the second half. And then, of course, we're not long on when Jack Hayes gets that goal. It was probably something that they would have looked at, his ability to get in around the back there. Jack Hayes, a really good forward and a really good goal-getting forward. Thurles would have watched the Flannans games. They would have played him in the first round. They would have known the story. They would have known the lines that they would try to exploit, if they could, because Flannans are a really good team. But they did it really well. And I know towards the end of the game, they had to defend really strongly, and Evan Morris came to the fore big time in that last kind of 5-6 minutes. They probably
He's had a
shouldn't
great
have been.
campaign, so he's real old school defender, isn't he? But he can get
Absolutely.
forward as well.
Absolutely, yeah, he's a great defender. Nothing spectacular about him, just really,
Yeah.
really solid, really, really safe. And he threw himself on the line there a few times in the remaining, in the last few minutes. And if there was to be a criticism of Thurles, they probably shouldn't have been in that position where they had to defend as resolutely as that in the closing stages. They should have had the game closed out probably from earlier out. But no, it was a tremendous win, and they had huge support in Mallow. It was huge, a huge Thurles crowd there. Not the game that you would have liked as a hurling purist. The pitch contributed to that. It was very, very bare, and I think it was only when we went out on the pitch after the game that you realised it. Impossible to pick a ball on the run, and that's what led to so many rucks and so much bunching and all that kind of carry on. Interesting too, I would say, if an analysis was done on the amount of rucks that were won by Flannans, they had the vast majority of them won. But Thurles managed to turn them over when they came out of the play, which was an interesting kind of a thing. In midfield, Kieran Roster in particular won an awful lot of ball doing that. The ruck would develop. The ruck would develop. A Flans when to come out with the ball, he's moving away, and Kieran Roster was getting in the knocking in the hurley and getting the ball away. Ewan Murray likewise. Ewan Murray made two superb catches just after half time, got a point, set up another one. Big, big, big scores, because suddenly the tide was turning in Thurles' favour. And it all kick-started huge celebrations, a great win for the school, a great occasion. And it gave everybody around here a huge lift.
Yeah, you can be sure that if you're Brendan Cummins, you're looking at all this talent that's coming at under 19 level. Like Clonmel won the B, Closh the Football, Ross Gray won the D before Christmas, and Newport are in the C final next week against Newcastle West. There's a fair chance that the four of the five senior categories of schools hurling could be won by Tipperary schools. Which, look, I think it's a further indication that I think at underage level and at schools level, things are moving pretty well. And just another player to reference from last weekend, David Costigan. Like, I think he's a brute of a centre forward, but he can score as well. Like, and he loves the combative nature of it. And I'd be surprised if he's not very, very close to the 20s, maybe starting team, maybe later in the year. And I know he's compromised with a leg injury at the moment, so he's not even at 100%.
Yeah, like in the past it used to be, Shane, that we were watching the Harty Cup to see, what kind of potentially what kind of a minor team we'd have. But then the whole thing changed. Minor moved back to 17. Harty's gone to 19. So you're really watching the Harty Cup now to see what kind of an under 20 team you'd have. And on the evidence of what we have seen in the last couple of years, Brendan Cummins should be very happy. That was the third Tipperary team, Tipperary school in succession to win the Harty with Cashel, Nina, and Thurles. Then you have Clonmel. So you have four major towns in Tipperary have won Munster titles in the last 3 years. As you say, you throw in the likes of Newport, you throw in Roscrea, you throw in the great work that's happening in Abbey CBS and Scullawan and Killenaw. Like a lot of
Carrigan
players.
were competing in the Harty last year for the first time in a long time as well, which was encouraging as well.
Exactly. So like there's a lot of good stuff happening, and like we have to give credit as well to the development squads and to the coaching games development committee and all the GDAs and all that, because a lot of their work is feeding into that. And you would be slightly baffled as to why we're considering changing our underage structure. Then when when it comes to under 15 and under 17, there was a vote at Board and Oak earlier on in the year, or before, at the end of last year, before Christmas there, there was moves afoot to change the under 15 and under 17 structure, and even still there are still more moves afoot, because they're now are talking of getting rid of the quarterfinals at under 17 level, and that's to be voted on at the county senior board in, I think it's the next board meeting actually. So there's a lot of resistance to that amongst the clubs, and that'll have to be played out as well. But what I'm saying is that you would wonder why there's so much tinkering going on, or potential tinkering going on, with a system that seems to be serving us very well.
I think I heard the explanation for, maybe, I suppose, going back to the old way, and I can understand it too, that that if you win your division, you should go county semi-finals like we always had. I think minor is the only one that has quarter-finals added in, and look, we've seen it over the last couple of years. We've had all mid-finals in minor. It was Holy Cross and my car. So like it'll be, and I think the reasoning, another part of the reasoning is that they could expand maybe the under 19 championship as well. Because like under 19 is the one that's it's fallen between two stools. Is that some clubs are maybe only getting 2 and 3 matches, whereas if you take a round of maybe county quarterfinals in minor, you could get maybe an extra round of under 19 in there somewhere. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what way it falls. I think I'd be surprised if the quarterfinals went. So it'll be interesting to see what way it happens. But like, you think about Thurles in a great spot now in a semi-final. They await the winners of Clare Galway or Kilkenny CBS. We assume it'll be Kilkenny CBS, and to be great. Like, I know people have lamented the fact that there's no Club All Irelands on Patrick's Day, but that's when the schools finals are, and I know it's just a big disappointment up Nina way when they were just missed out in the semi-final last year, that they didn't get to go to Crow Park. So I'm sure that'll be a big incentive in Thurles over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it'd be huge, Shane. And like they had a big celebration on Wednesday morning there, because of the bank holiday. Of course, there was nobody in school on Monday, and then on Tuesday they had a good few teams playing, school teams playing in different championships. So they decided to wait and have their celebration on Wednesday, and that was a big event in the school assembly hall yesterday morning. And it was an event which was centered around inspiring the younger guys coming through. That was the whole purpose of the event, as well as feting the men who brought home the Harty Cup for the 9th time. The Harty holds huge sway around these parts. It's I would say it's probably second only to winning an All Ireland minor title. Well, obviously an All Ireland senior hurling title as well down the line if you can. But definitely it's next to winning an All Ireland minor title. And what it does in this.
It does. Just sorry for cutting across you there, but I think it was Anthony Daly in his podcast remarked that there was an elderly man from Cork who was at the match last weekend, and he's 80s, and he would have had, what are you doing here? And I'm a native of Gortnahoe. I played back in a Harty final back in the 50s, and I lined up, and John Dial was in part of the defence with me. Like, it is, like, you look at American sports where the collegiate thing is big, and like you're sort of linked to that college for life. I think definitely schools hurling more than maybe Fitzgibbon Cup and Seaver's Cup. Definitely the schools hurling thing is the one that definitely, if you're a part of it, you sort of carries you for life as well.
It does, and particularly if you have success, like there were loads of guys who went through Thurles CBS and played Harty Cup, and never won anything. I was one of them, played in the Harty, and we were beaten in the quarter final. But it's something that you would be kind of proud of, that you played Harty Cup for the school, and that, and particularly I suppose a school with the kind of the history and tradition of Thurles CBS, and given all the great players that have gone back through the years and are coming now as well. These lads have made their own little bit of history. They made history too by beating Flannans, because it was the first time that Thurles had beaten Flannans in the final. So that was a little bit special as well. Flannans being the Harty Cup aristocrats, really, to go and beat them in a final was a big thing too. And you know what, Shane? It's a I wouldn't bet on the meeting in an All Ireland final too if the cards fall the right way. It could be quite on the cards.
Could get a trilogy, all right. So
yeah,
we want to look forward to if that happens. Yeah, just before we wrap up, the ladies footballers went down to a narrow 1-point defeat to Monaghan. I think more or less the last kick of the game up in Castleblaney. It's a disappointment, another defeat, and now they have Cork coming next Sunday afternoon to Feathertown Park for a 2:00 throw-in. I suppose the games they're not getting any easier, but like it's a very competitive Division 2 for ladies. But look, in terms of Ed Burke, it still has Ashley McCarthy to come back. I suppose it's all about getting to know the team. The couple of experienced girls have come back as well, like, and they're finding their feet again. So look, I think come the end of the campaign, if they're not relegated, if they finish with a good solid Division 2 and maybe take something to the championship, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, it's about Ed Burke getting to know his players, and about the players getting to know the management team as well. That was always going to be a tough one, a long journey up to Monaghan, and to fall short by a point was disappointing for them. Even if they to get a point out of the game, it would have been something for them to bring home. As you say, Cork coming next weekend, that won't be simple. But all these games are helping to bring the players on, and like you could see even in the opening round there against Galway, down in Feathertown Park as well, you could see what they're about. You could see what Ed Burke is trying to do with the team, and the more games they get them, the more that will fall into place for them. But you would like to see him picking up a couple of points here or there now, because the Galway one was a little bit more comprehensive. There were probably once Galway got the scores and that, and Tip missed the couple of chances. Galway got 2 goals there in the first half to take a fair old lead into half time, and Tip missed a couple of chances, and they were never really going to get back. But this weekend against Cork will be difficult for them too. But you would like to see him maybe trying to put a couple of points on the board after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that game's Sunday at 2 in Feathertown Park, and then the hurlers are in Limerick 3:45. That game is on TG Carr as well. That's about it for this week's edition of TippCast. My thanks to Noel Dundon. We'll be back next week. We'll be reviewing the Limerick game, and we also hope to have a couple of special interviews lined up. We have hope to have speak to Tip CEO Murta Brennan about where things are supposed to stand in his going into his third year as CEO, and I suppose the win house draw there. We're heading to about 6 weeks towards the draw date, and how that is moving along. I suppose that's a big key fundraiser in terms of developing or enhancing facilities at Coolmore Morris Park. Thanks for once again to Noel, and we'll be back again soon. Bye for now.